So to get started, I know I do have a few new coaches on the call. I won't take up too much time with this, but just to remind you that First LEGO League Now Challenge, I'll talk about the rebranding, is a STEM-based learning opportunity for students in grades 4 through 8. That translates to ages 9 through 14. Every season, the teams get a new real-world problem to tackle. We'll talk about the problem this year on the call. There's two parts, the robot game and the innovation project, but those two parts happen with our core values. The teamwork and competition is guided through core values. And the graphic you're seeing here is actually a part of the challenge overview this season. So you'll see it referenced in a lot of places. I really like it. I feel like it almost reads like a checklist of what teams should be working on because there's lots of pieces and parts that make our program so awesome. This year, the challenge is called RePLAY, and it's all about finding new and innovative ways to get people more motivated and able to get activity and get outside. So the robot game missions are based on that, and so is the innovation project. So we'll look at some resources for teams. Again, if you're a new coach or returning, our season overview, and I do have a couple updates as well. So May through October, what you should be doing before you get your challenge is gathering your team. You'll need 2 adult coaches and 10 to 2 team members in grades 4 through 8, ages 9 through 14. When you register with First, you receive your official team number, you receive team meeting guide and engineering notebooks. One quick update, it came up on a call last time. First is only sending 2 engineering notebooks to teams this year, but we will talk about how coaches can access all of the engineering notebook material for teams online. They've made it able so you can download it, you can have it digitally, which is something they've never done before. You'll order your season materials, so you'll get your season challenge kit, which is the robot game that you see here. This is the new game this year. On our website, you can also find a bigger version of the robot game if you're interested in seeing it. One update that I have received on a past call, coaches were wondering if they would be able to order more than one challenge kit. Normally every year you can only order one. I did receive an update today that starting on August 27th, coaches will actually be able to order a second challenge kit through the First store. So if you're trying to work on social distancing or maybe having kind of little pods within your team, you will be able to purchase another kit if you're interested. They are still looking at just trying to sell the mat, which would be a much more cost-efficient way for teams to get another mat or access to the game. They haven't released details on that, but as soon as we know, we'll put that out there to everybody. And then you'll also need a Lego robot, which again can be reused. Steve will be able to talk more. We'll talk more about adding in Prime this year, but we'll have other webinars related just to robot design if you've got questions about that. The challenge was released August 4th, so it's already out there. We have a lot of great resources for you guys to look for, so you'll see that in just a minute. So really quickly, before we turn it over to Karen and Steve and get into other content, I do want to let coaches know, and anybody else on the line, that we will absolutely be delivering a competition season this year. It may look different than other years, but we are 100% committed to making sure that we have some kind of competition season for RePLAY. Virginia and DC First LEGO League is moving the competition season from, normally it's in November, December. It would take place on November, December of 2020. We're going to be moving that to mid-January, late February 2021. And that timeline does include some kind of championship event that we hope to have. So we don't have all the exact details yet, but you definitely can put in your calendars mid-January, late February to that season, and we'll have more updates on that. We are still determining the format of our events. I will be able to give a little bit more information tonight about judging, but we are still looking and exploring the options of whether it should be remote, in-person, or a hybrid. We will definitely make this decision by November, but we hope to have more information as soon as we can to teams. And it's important to note that this will only be a schedule change for this season. We don't, past this year, we don't plan on moving that back. We hope to keep it in that same time frame, but this is a different season, and we want to make sure that we give teams time to prepare for that season. Teams can start entering their information in the team manager account. On one of our earlier webinars, we talked about how teams can get registered through FIRST, and then how they can get registered with us for an event. That new system is up and live. You can go ahead and get into that. We have it linked all over our website and on the slides, which you'll have access to after the webinar tonight. But because of the uncertainty around our events, we haven't opened up payment yet. If we decide to go all remote, we would hope to give a reduced price to teams because it won't be the same experience, but we haven't released that yet. But you can still go ahead and start putting your team information in, which Karen will talk later on about why that might be important for your team to do now. In order to pick events, whether they be remote, in person, we'll still have that same process where you submit your tournament preferences to us to get assigned, and that will open up at 10 a.m. on December 1st, and it will run through December 10th. So the process still remains the same. We're just pushing it back a little bit, and as soon as we have information, we'll get it to you, but there are some points tonight that we can confidently say we're moving forward with. So before I hand it over to Karen, if you've been with the program before, you might have noticed that first when First LEGO League had a rebranding in the spring. This was something that was going to happen before COVID-19 and had already started to happen. But it's a new look. It's the same great program and content that you love, just with a new look. Instead of it being called just First LEGO League, we now have First LEGO League Challenge. In a lot of information you see online, you'll see that it says ages 9 through 16. That's because in other countries, they allow play till 16. It is still the same in the U.S. Our program does go to 14. Karen will talk more about the nuances of that, but I just want to make it clear that our program is for grades 4 through 8 students ages 9 through 14. What was First LEGO League Junior is now First LEGO League Explore. And then there's a new pre-K program called First LEGO League Discover, and we're still looking at what that looks like in Virginia and DC, but we'll have more information on our website in the next couple of weeks. So same great program, same content, just with a new look. So with that, I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to our regional tournament coordinator, Karen Berger, to talk about some age division changes in our area.
Okay. Hello, everyone. I'm Karen Berger, and I'm the Regional Tournament Coordinator for VA+DC FLL. So, as was mentioned, First LEGO League is for students 9 to 14. We do allow younger students to participate. So, if you do have, 7 and 8-year-old students, we do allow those to participate in First LEGO League. Generally, we recommend you not have a team of all 7 and 8-year-olds, but certainly if you have 1 or 2, that should not be an issue. If that is going to be a situation for your team, please feel free to reach out to questions@va-dcfll.org, and you can get more information there. Within Virginia, DC, we do use 2 different age divisions to organize our teams and organize our tournaments. And this is done because we are a very large region. We have a lot of events, a lot of teams. It helps us more fairly assess the teams and recognize them across the various levels of play, especially with respect to some of the areas where it can make a really big difference between some of the very younger kids and the much older kids. You want to go to the next slide? So we have actually updated that criteria. Starting this year, we're going to be using a slightly different process for organizing divisions within Virginia, DC. We are now going to be basing it on grades and not necessarily on birthdays as it has been in the past. So under the new system, any teams that are made up of students all grades 5 and younger will be Division 1. Teams that have 6th grade students and older will be Division 2. And the team's division is going to be based on what we call the oldest member of the team. So in this case, it'd be the team that's in the highest grade. Most of our tournaments will still have both divisions just as they have in the past. We've generally only had a very small number of tournaments that are single division. In the event, we do understand that for a small number of teams, grade may not apply in the same way it does for most other students. So if that is the case, we will still be collecting the birthdays so we can revert back to the birthday criteria as we have in the past. In this case, what we'll be looking for is the age of the student on January 1st. And it would be January 1st of 2020, even though we won't be competing until early in 2021. So again, it would be if all of the students are 10 or younger on January 1st, 2020, they would be Division 1. If any students are 11 or older, they would be Division 2. And that means you could still have 11-year-old on a Division 1 team as long as they turned 11 after that January 1st date. For most teams, this is not going to be a significant impact, but this is actually a change from previous seasons. If you want to go to the next slide. So we have actually reduced it and kind of pushed things back by, actually, we'll go to that on the next one, sorry. To do this, when you go and register, you're going to go to your team manager account. When you enter the team members, you'll be selecting both their grade and their birthday. That information then will be used by the system to automatically determine what division the team is in. So you guys don't have to be able to determine it on your own. The system will actually make that determination for you. If this update causes any kind of major concern, issue with your team, please reach out to us. The main place I could see this being a potential issue, we do have a small number of schools within Virginia and DC that elementary school is grades K through 6 instead of K through 5. So it could be a potential issue there. We just really recommend that you reach out to us, and we hopefully can come up with a good solution for whatever concerns you do have. So this is actually a little bit of a change from our previous seasons, not just in that we're going to grade base, but we've actually pushed things back a year. In the past, we would have defined Division 1 as 11 or younger on January 1st. We've moved it to 10 because what we've seen over the past probably 5 or 6 years now is we have moved the state significantly into Division 1 to where over 75% of our teams last season were Division 1 and less than 25% were Division 2. By making this change, we actually looked back through the past couple years worth of teams. It moves us to almost an exact 50-50 split among the teams. So that makes it a much more even split with the divisions across the state. It aligns us better with how FIRST defines the programs. They do a lot of the definitions by grade. And it also aligns most of the teams a little bit better with the elementary versus middle school. So in general, elementary students will be Division 1, middle school students will be Division 2.
So with this, thank you so much, Karen, for talking about that. So again, if you have questions, we do want to take a break really quick and stop. I don't see, Christian, do you see any questions in the chat on the Q&A? I don't see any questions, no. Okay. And a lot of times with our webinars, people, as we go through, questions will start to pop in. But again, please go ahead. We're checking out the chat, but throw them in the Q&A if you do have any questions as we go through. But we'll go ahead and move on if there are any questions. But again, if you do have a question regarding the age requirements of the division system, at any time throw it in there and we can always come back to it. So I want to move on to another program update about the new Consolidated Judging. I know that with COVID and with everything up in the air, it's like, why are we talking about this now? The reason why we decided to bring this up now is for 2 reasons. FIRST has already published this information on the FIRST LEGO League website. So we want to make sure that our teams in Virginia and DC hear it from us and know that we're on board with what they're seeing and it makes sense. We also know, if you're a fan of backwards design like myself, I know if I'm trying to coach a team through a season, I do want to know what we're going to be evaluated on, what we're working towards. So by knowing what the new judging format is and the new rubrics, it will hopefully give your team a better idea of what to prepare for throughout the season. And we'll also be able to talk a little bit more about judging during COVID as well, and we have an announcement. So to talk about consolidated judging, this is something that has been in the works before for a while now. And in a few parts of the world, it's actually been used for a while. First LEGO League was going to be using this system at the World Championship this year, but with COVID, that got canceled. So they didn't have a chance to run it on that global scale, but it's something that they've been using in a lot of different regions and places around the world. So what is it? Consolidated judging, it brings all the elements of FLL Challenge into the same room in one 30-minute session. In the past, in a normal day, teams would have to go to a robot design judging room for 10 minutes. They would go to a project room for 10 minutes, and they would go to a core values room for 10 minutes. So altogether, it was 30 minutes worth of judging sessions. And that was in addition to their 3 robot games and their 1 practice round. So there was a lot of moving around throughout the day. So the goal of this is to kind of bring that together into one 30-minute session. The reason behind this is actually to create a better experience for the teams. What this process does, as I show it to you, is it tries to elevate the use of core values by looking at it through every element of FLL challenge. Instead of isolating it into one judging room, the person evaluating core values is actually going to be looking for it across all the parts of the program. It's going to streamline the process a lot for teams and for the volunteers running it. Instead of teams having to drag different pieces of their presentations to different rooms, it's going to streamline it. Just the other day, I was on a call with coaches from Prince William County, and a coach was talking about how their team went into robot design and they forgot their robot. So they had to sit there and talk about it without their robot because it had just been such a crazy day. So instead of trying to prepare for all these different judging sessions, it's all happening at once. And what this does, especially through the new rubrics, is it standardizes the awards process. And so that you'll probably be able to see that when we look through rubrics, and I will talk about awards later as well. So there are a lot of things that are the same. If you've ever been a coach in the past, or if you've ever judged in the past, there will still be 3 rubrics. Teams will still receive feedback on all elements of FLL. The rubrics will still be presented in the same style, and I'll show you those in just a minute. The way that you are ranked in areas will still be the same. All 4 areas will be equally weighted. So the robot game, robot design, project, and core values, last year they were all equally weighted. That will still remain the same. The way that they rank the Champions Award will also remain the same. Teams will still be advancing. The amount of advancements, that will, again, stay the same. Judges will still be deliberating on teams. They'll still come back and have a total conversation as what they saw in the day. There will still be the same core awards in terms of a robot performance award and project. I mean, they'll still have some of those core awards. The next 2 points I think are really interesting. What teams prepare beforehand will essentially stay the same. What they're preparing for judges really won't change. And you'll see that in just a minute when I talk about the flow of the judging process. And teams will still have Q&A from judges. They'll still be able to have a focused project Q&A. They'll still be able to have a focused robot design Q&A and a focused core values Q&A. So the elements of the program won't meld into each other. They'll still have some separation within this 30-minute session. There are some things that are new. New would be the single half-hour session. The rubric criteria will look different. It's now going to be based on the engineering design process. And when I show you the rubrics in just a second, you'll see what I'm talking about. The way that teams are ranked will be different. And I was really happy to see this change. In the past, they ranked teams against each other. And really the point of this new process and these new rubrics is that teams are ranked against the rubric, that what the rubric says is how they're ranked. The official judging spreadsheet will look a little bit different. So if I have some judges on the line, which I might have, that will look a little bit different, but we'll be working on training and making sure that our volunteers in the area feel really comfortable with that. Teams will actually there will be a place in the judging session for teams to actually receive verbal feedback. A lot of times when those kids, when you're talking with them about what they've been working on, you notice things right away, things that you want to let them know. And what they found in testing is that this was a piece that the teams really, really appreciated. They worked so hard. And so to get that feedback from them right in the moment was a part of the process that was really highly valued by the teams who have been testing this out. Core values is also going to be integrated program-wide. And you'll see what I mean when I get into the judging flow in terms of how core values plays a more important role throughout the entire program. And with this new process, awards are going to be more standardized and easier to allocate. So again, for some of my volunteers on the line, hopefully it helps, from what I've heard, deliberations go faster, and the whole process is just more enjoyable for everybody. So the graphic that I have on the screen is actually a graphic that FIRST has already put out to teams. It's publicly released. You can find it on the firstlegoleague.org website and the First Inspires website. So this is a judging flow chart of what that 30 minutes would look like. So in the beginning, teams would come into the room and they would have approximately 3 to 6 judges. They would still have a core values judge who would kind of act as the lead judge in terms of helping transition teams. And there's a couple things they'll be looking for. There'll be a project judge and a robot design judge. So they'll still be experts on the different topics. So when they come in, the lead judge would welcome them into the room. Teams can set up whatever materials. And again, this will look different in a remote setting, and we'll be providing feedback on that. But the first 5 minutes, teams would be doing their innovation project presentation, which is the same amount of time they had in the past. Then there would be 5 minutes for a Q&A. And again, that is the same from the past. They had 10 minutes in the innovation project room. They still have 10 minutes to present that. So what teams are preparing hasn't necessarily changed. Then that lead judge will help transition the judges and the team into robot design. So again, the teams will give their explanation, whether they have a prepared presentation or they just want to talk about their robot or talk about their strategy or show their engineering notebooks or their robot guides that they put together. They'll still have 5 minutes for question and answer with the robot design judge. Then there's 3 minutes for core values reflection. And really what's happening in the background here is the core values judge is listening for examples of core values in the innovation project, in robot design. So many times when the kids are in these separate rooms, they're giving these great examples of core values. And so you can see that kind of laid out a little bit here. And they would be able to kind of ask more questions. If they didn't hear something from a team, they dig a little bit deeper into core values. And then the last 5 minutes would be where judges would be able to provide that verbal feedback to teams that we talked about that they appreciated so much. So again, teams are still giving their presentations on what they've done, and they're still going to have a targeted Q&A. Core values judge will be looking for those elements throughout the whole process. And the teams will still receive written feedback in the form of rubrics. So yes, they have the verbal feedback, but they'll also get that written feedback that they can take back and analyze later on as a team. So I want to talk quickly about the judging rubrics. And again, these rubrics have already been made public. That's why we're addressing them on our season updates call, because they're already out there. So we just wanted to talk more about what they look like. When I show these to you, they may be hard to see, but when I send out the slides, they are linked here. And like I said, they are already updated on the site. So with these different rubrics, you'll notice with the innovation project and the design, they still have the same style they've had in the past, but the criteria has now been organized based on the engineering design process. So the engineering design process is identify, design, create, iterate, and communicate. And as you can see here, there are some clear criteria that judges would be looking for. And one thing I also think is really interesting is that while they've always had these categories of beginning, developing, accomplish, and exceeds, in order for a team to reach a 4, the judge has to have specific examples that the team is given that would get them to that exceeds category. So every team is different, and the reasons why they exceeded the expectation of that criteria is going to be different. So judges have actually got to articulate that. And judges will get more training on this, and we've got a lot coming up in the future, and we'll talk more about it. But these rubrics are already out there, so we wanted to show you what we're going to be using this season so you can start to think about that. Core values, again, it does have the column for if the team exceeds, the judges got to justify that. It is a little bit more simplified in terms of just looking for the criteria and does it meet that. So those are the new rubrics, and again, you can find those posted online, but we'll have them linked here. So hopefully helping with the process a little bit more. One update we would like to give about remote judging, while we're still working on the possibility of maybe holding an in-person event, we are comfortable in announcing now that we will be moving to remote judging because it is going to reduce the event sizes. So there's going to be a big change in our community. We will be reaching out with our volunteers and working on trainings and taking care of that, but we will do a deeper dive into what that looks like in November. We'll have a special webinar for teams and coaches to attend just based on that. We'll hear from Scott Rakestraw, our head judge advisor. So you will see more of what this looks like, this consolidated judging looks like on a remote level, but we at least wanted to let teams know what to expect as they plan for their season. So with that, Christian, I'm not seeing any questions in the Q&A, are you?
I am not.
Okay. Again, as we take these breaks, I know I threw out a lot of information about the new system, but please feel free to throw those comments up there, questions up there, so we can maybe get some conversation going. So moving on, I did want to talk a little bit about the robot game resources. And before I bring Steve Scher, our head referee for the area, I did want to quickly point out that with every year we have a new game, we have new mission models, we have new challenge updates, we have a lot of new things. So you can find all the resources on the first website, but we've also on our new website, VA+DCFLL.org, we've also taken some time to put everything in one place for you, including some other resources that might be helpful during COVID. So this year you will find the robot game rulebook, you will find a video to the missions and the challenge updates. It's really important that teams carefully look at the missions and the rules, and it's really important that they do check back with challenge updates. The game gets updated every year, and so there's going to be new questions, and there is a process of how first makes those decisions, but it's important to check on those challenge updates. So I want to bring Steve onto the call now. And Steve, I do have them bulleted out, so you can just let me know next bullet point. But Steve's going to go ahead and talk about what's new in our rules this year.
Hello, everyone. As Caitlin said, I'm Steve Scher, and I'm your referee advisor for Virginia, D.C. And for totally new coaches, don't worry about what's changed. All you have to do is know that you want to pay attention to the robot game rulebook and to the challenge updates, and ask your teams to look at those closely, every month or so right now, just to make sure that they still understand what they're thinking about, that they haven't made any assumptions that don't still match the rules and the missions. And I always guarantee that in any video presentation put out, there's at least one error, so don't always trust the videos. But anyway, for coaches who were with us last year, we had an unusual change as we went to a shortened mat and a home area, and the home area and the launch area were separate, which caused a lot of unintended issues. So that's been fixed this year, and the home area and launch area are all. The launch area is part of the home area now, and the special place for launch only counts when you're in the process of readying your robot for a launch. So getting your robot set up to launch and then to leave out and run its next mission. Okay. This makes things simpler if your robot uses a positioning jig. Then it can extend all the way to the west wall. The way the rules were written last year, that was not allowed, which confused a lot of teams. Next. A big thing this year is that there's another type of robot controller that you can use, the new Spike Prime robotics platform. It looks pretty fun to use, and looking forward to seeing some teams use that. But anyone who's still using an EV3, or earlier versions is still welcome to. The functionality should be very much the same, and there's no, based on testing that they've done, they think there's no advantage one way or the other. So if your teams are very familiar with the EV3, great, they should stick with that. If you're just getting started with a new set, go ahead with Spike Prime. It's got a more graphical-based programming interface as its native platform, which a lot of kids will like. Anyone who's worked with Scratch will recognize that pretty well. So for many years, we've had a height limit during launch, okay? And this year, there is no height limit for the robot and things that it is, parts of your team's equipment that it's working within the launch area. The only height limit is during the inspection when your team first comes to the match and they put all their equipment and their robot in one of the two inspection areas to see if they earn the bonus points for the for the inspection mission. Caitlin, let me ask you a question. Has the software been released yet that has the guided mission in it yet? I know that it was not available at the beginning of the month.
Yes, I believe so. That's the bocce mission, correct, Steve? Or I think that's what they put out there right now. So on our website, you can find that. But they have put out some guidance on some of the missions. They're not as targeted as it was last year with the one guided mission, but they have put that on there, and I have updated it on our robot game resources page towards the bottom in the column.
Okay, so do make sure you've got the updated version of the software, and you'll be able to see everything you need to know about the guided mission, which is intended to help beginning teams learn about how to program the robot and use some sensors and things. So it's really very helpful, and a lot of coaches appreciated it last year. And the last bullet on this chart is there was a technical detail that things had to be motionless before the launch, which caused some problems for things like a swing that might still be swinging. So technically, your robot should not have been launching if the swing was still swinging, and that really wasn't adding anything to the goal of having the robot game. So that's been removed. The stranded cargo rule is easier to follow and apply. Okay, and for the first time ever, the question that so many teams of coaches have asked about, there is a way to lose a precision token as a way instead of losing a piece of equipment that's stranded partly outside home. So things that are stranded completely outside home stay where they are. Things that are stranded, so stranded means the robot lets go of them. Things that are stranded completely in home, the team can handle because they can handle anything within home. And things that are on the border, if it's a mission model, we'll take it out of play. And if it's a team piece of equipment, then we'll take a precision token and the team gets to keep that piece of equipment.
So thank you so much, Steve, for talking about those. And I do want to throw it out there. We didn't get into the robot game really intensely this time because we will be holding some sessions. Before I talk about those, though, if you are a returning team or coach, and I know Steve will back me up on this one, but just make sure you are paying attention to the full competition rules and reading them carefully and often, like Steve had mentioned. The list we just shared with you is not completely detailed. A lot of, the little changes happen within the mission and they just change from year to year. So while we provided some big overview changes, it really is important that you look into those. And I really am going to echo what Steve said. Get the kids on your team to do that. Have them reading that. Have them looking for that. The more that they understand, the more that they're going to take ownership of the work. And a lot of times coaches want to make sure they understand everything. Share the love, man. Let them take a look at those. Have somebody on your team always checking those updates. So I just want to echo that. And again, we will be taking a deeper dive into the robot game on September 9th. That'll be our next webinar session. Steve Scher will be joining us again. He has the RePLAY robot game, the mission models. He'll be able to go over the missions and take questions and answers. So we shared some of these updates with you to get you thinking, because we really hope that teams come prepared with some questions for him. They've really had some time to sink their teeth into the robot game and really kind of start to look at what strategies are they going to work on. Steve won't be there to answer strategy questions necessarily, but he can provide clarification. And then one thing that a lot of coaches have asked about is more on robot design. So on September 22nd, we will be doing a robot design webinar where you will actually get to hear from experienced teams. We'll show you some places where you can go for basic builds. We will hopefully have more updates with COVID-19 in terms of other virtual platforms that teams might be able to use who won't be able to get together for robot design. So it should be a great session, and I'm really, really excited to hear from the teams. Again, just the way you registered for this webinar, some of you guys on the call have already registered that way, but in the slides, you will be able to register for those webinars here. So September is going to be all about the robot game. So Christian, I know I don't see any more questions, but I do want to shout out to Phil. Phil is one of our awesome, he's been a judge advisor, been involved in the program for a long time, and he's really excited about some of the changes. So thank you, Phil. But Christian, are you seeing any other questions on your end?
I'm not. No, you're good to go.
Awesome. That means we're just doing such a fantastic job of explaining, or people are just they've just got to get in there and get their hands on the mission to have their questions. So the last section of today, I really want to talk about season resources. If anything is important this season, I think it's really going to be that we support our coaches. We really appreciate what you do. So I wanted to take the last part of the session to talk about resources we've already shared, as well as updates to resources that are out there. So before I get into this section, I have to stop and say a big thank you to a group called Share and Learn. They're an online community that focuses on STEM education for students primarily in First LEGO League. They have held coaches brainstorming sessions. They've held sessions since then. They'll continue to hold their sessions. They do have a Facebook group that's a really great resource. I'm involved with it. They're always giving me things to think about. They work closely with a site called FLL Tutorials. This is a website created by the FRC team 8027. They also are the ones who have founded EV3lessons.com and PrimeLessons.com, and they're just such a great part of our community. So definitely check them out and give them love. And I'll be showing you a lot of the resources tonight that they've developed. These are students and volunteers who just love the community and want to make sure that coaches feel supported through everything. So if you were on my call last time, our last webinar, I used this quote that I think is really important. Reject the tyranny of or and embrace the genius of and. As you start this coaching season, I'm really happy that you're with us, but I want us to remember that it's not about can we have a first LEGO League team or be safe. Can we meet in person or not meet at all? It's really about the genius of and. How can we still give our students these great opportunities and keep them safe? How can we still have them interacting with other teams and sharing their work and getting advice from experts in the field and keeping them maybe in a remote setting? So as we go through some of these resources, it really is about what position is your team in and how can you make that and happen? How can we still deliver a program to these students who, more than anything, I really feel like need and deserve opportunities like this. So again, this is just a really quick review from our last session. Most of our teams in Virginia fall into one of the three categories. They can either meet, but with safety precautions put in place. They have to meet remotely, but they do have access to the robot table, to the robot game. And we will have some teams starting the season where they have to meet remotely and they cannot get access to their robot. I've heard of coaches where literally the robot is locked up in the school and they can't get there, or they just can't get to their game yet. So our last session was kind of talking more about these three categories. First and foremost, above all, we want to make sure that we honor local health and safety guidelines and regulations. Before any guidance that we put out, you should definitely be following the guidance of the professionals, of our scientists, of our leaders in our community. A lot of the guidance that we put out there to teams first put together a huge 15-long document of season guidance for teams. It wasn't really this is what you have to do. It was more of a list of suggestions and options. And a lot of our resources come from there. In our webinar questions, I've seen a lot of coaches ask questions about these, but I do want to remind people that on our first webinar in July, we talked about how to fund your team. We went over grants. If you're looking to register with FIRST, there's an entire section just walking you through with screenshots. And then we have a section on our new registration system. Everything has timestamps. Everything's in YouTube, and you have access to all the links, so you can skip right to the part you need. I say this because I don't want to repeat everything we said on our last session, but on our last session, we really spent an hour unpacking the RePLAY season. And most importantly, we spent a lot of time looking at how coaches can manage their teams through COVID-19, whether your team can meet in person, has to be remote, or is some combination of both. We took some time to look at core values, innovation project, and robot game. So again, they're time-stamped. If you really want more resources from the past, I would definitely encourage you to check that out. On that call, we did talk about challenge content, and I do have a couple of exciting updates for you guys about that. For the first time ever, First LEGO League has made all of the content digital. You will not have access to this until you've completed your first registration and you've got your official team number. Once that happens, you will see this little box pop up. It says access to ThinkSpace. ThinkSpace is a platform that in the past was primarily used by First Tech Challenge teams, but this year they're going to be utilizing it for First LEGO League Explore and First LEGO League Challenge. So this is going to be where you find all of the digital documents that First is going to be providing. So one best practice tip that I mentioned last time, when you're getting started with your team, it's going to be important to figure out a way to get information to them, whether it be Google Classroom or Discord or whatever platform, Microsoft Teams, whatever it is that you want to use. It will be helpful to establish how are you going to get this stuff to students? How are you going to keep ideas? How are you going to keep notes? Even when I was a coach and my team met in person, we still had a Google Classroom space. So just best practice, you will have access to lots of great resources. Make sure that your team has a way to deliver those resources to the team members. So there's a couple of new things in ThinkScape. Last time I had mentioned that they'd have things there. Now I actually have gotten in and I want to share with you a couple of cool things. So they have digital interactive, sorry, that's spelled incorrectly, but interactive, not inactive, interactive engineering notebooks and team meeting guides. So they actually have digital PDFs that you can send to your team members where they can be filling things out and entering things. They have the robot game rulebook there, the team meeting guides. So you will have as many digital copies of the engineering notebook as you need. I know that was one of the issues that got brought up, is they only sent us 2 physical copies. We have given some feedback to First about that, but you will have access to as many digital copies as you do need, and I will fix that spelling, that typing error. Other season resources I was really excited to see. We have all of this on our website, but they have a welcome letter that lists out all the resources you need. They have EV3 lessons that Steve had mentioned. They have the robot game table building if you need it. So they've got all of those things located in one place. They also have a whole section on videos. They've got the kickoff video. The partners, the First LEGO League partners over in the UK and Ireland developed these really great getting started videos. So if you're a brand new coach who just is like, point me in the right direction, they've got these great videos that apply to the replay season that'll help you just figure out where to get started. One thing that we don't have on our site that I was excited to see, they actually already have a couple of replay specific videos that you can show students, videos about physical activity, videos about health. So as you're trying to get them started on the innovation project and thinking about what they're going to do, they've already gathered resources for you to try to make your life a little bit easier. They also have inspiration sources. So I noticed that they have a whole section on just images of real world problems that relate to the robot game and the innovation project. And so just showing those images to your students, to your team members, might be a really great way to get some conversation going over a Zoom meeting or however your team is going to meet. So they've already got a lot of great inspiration things going on there. You don't have to reinvent the wheel. You can find all of this on your First team dashboard. And last but not least, they also have tons of other resources from First and LEGO Education. They've got all these training modules if you're a coach and you want it, but they've also got sanitation tips and things like that we talked about on our last call, but I love that they just put it all in one place for you. And we've never had that in the past before, and I think it's even more important with what we're dealing with right now. One really interesting thing that I found when I was in there was the share and learn FLL units that they put together. I use the word units loosely because really what they've done is they've gathered a bunch of best practices and important information in the form of a curated Facebook page. So if you're a teacher, it's not the traditional units and curriculum you're thinking of, but I think it's really, really great information all gathered in one place for you. So they have and I actually, when I send out these slides, I didn't mean to link the exact Facebook link here, but I'll provide that when I send it out. In Unit 1, they've got a bunch of the tips for dealing with COVID-19 that we talked about on our last webinar, but they've even got guidance for, I've heard of coaches who are planning to do some of their practices outside. So they're going to move the field outside. They're going to get as close to the Wi-Fi as they can. It'll kind of be like soccer practice where if it rains, we don't have practice that day. I've heard of some really innovative coaches where they're going to get the MindStore, the software programming platform, on the students' computers. And the team members each week, they're going to work on a different mission. And everyone's going to send their ideas, their code to their coach. And then on a Zoom call, the coach is going to have a camera on the robot game. And the coach is going to run each one of the team members' missions. And then they're going to pick a mission to sit there and refine together. So getting that conversation going. So a lot of our coaches on here have really great and innovative ideas. And I would definitely suggest you check that out. They have another unit on just RePLAY resources, on mini build lessons, on tournament questions. It's important to note that it's not specific to Virginia, DC, but a lot of it is just generic, really helpful things as you're preparing. They've got even more units. This has been going on for a while, but it's a really great curated place to get information and ask questions too. We're one big, huge community, and I love to see them putting together resources like this. Another really great place to go to, if you haven't gone there already, is please go to our new website. Christian Jones and I on the call spent a lot of time putting this together, and we're really excited. It's still a work in progress, but I do want to point you to some important places. Under selected program, teams, and team resources, we do have an updated team resources page. Each one of these sections is a menu that opens up. So when you click on the plus button, a series of links. So we have season-specific links about robot game, innovation project, core values, other things you need to know. We have tournament resources. Right now, this section is still under development a lot because we are going to have to change how our events look with COVID-19. But you'll be able to find more information about our division system, other helpful things, especially as we figure out what the season is going to look like. You'll find that there. We have additional coach and mentoring resources in terms of team management resources and funding resources, sample budgets for teams to look at. We'll post our webinars here. But between your first dashboard and our website, you really should have access to everything you need. But we're always looking for more resources. So if you find something that we don't have yet, please send it our way. One important question I have been seeing a lot when we've been asking for feedback about the season, we do still have a lot of teams asking how they can get their kid on a team or have their child join another team. We don't traditionally match students to teams, but Christian and I are really proud. Christian has put together a Find a Team page. It's not exactly going to place your student on a team, but we do try to give you some helpful tips and tricks to connect with people in your area. So please go ahead and check that out and follow up with us if you do have any questions about that. We're probably not going to do a separate webinar on it, but we can help wherever we can. Another great resource I talked about last time that I just want to shout out again is a brand new thing. Again, First was working on this before COVID-19, but I think it's even more important now. First has put together what they're calling the First Mentor Network. And what the goal of this is we know that teams are oftentimes looking for experts in the field, a mentor, maybe somebody who knows more about their innovation project, maybe somebody who knows more about the robot game and robot design. So what they've done here is First has created a platform where experts can go and create a profile and teams can go and create a profile. And that through this platform, you're going to be able to connect with mentors in the area and digitally. I mean, you might be able to access experts from across the country, across the world through this platform. So if your team is looking for mentors, that's been something that we haven't been able to facilitate very efficiently in the past. You will be able to go to the First Mentor Network and create a team profile and hopefully get access. This is a new system, so again, give us feedback. We're always looking for that we can give to First, but hopefully it allows you to set up some virtual mentorships. So we are getting to the last couple minutes of the call, and I do want to talk about our upcoming webinars because we have a lot of great ones planned. But Christian, are you seeing anything in the Q&A section tonight?
No more questions as far as I can tell.
Okay. That totally has to mean we're doing such a great job. But I know that we will have coaches that check this out later on. Again, please send questions to our questions email. We'll be here to answer those questions as they pop up. So as we wrap up tonight, I do want to talk about some of our upcoming webinars. I think that we have a lot of great opportunities in the future for teams to grow even more than they have in the past. So I mentioned before on September 9th, we will have our head referee, Steve Scher. We'll be going over the RePLAY missions and rules, and we'll be doing a Q&A session with coaches. So please do a little bit of research beforehand and come prepared with those questions, because we're going to be ready to answer them. We really want to hear what teams are excited about, what they're looking at, what they're maybe thinking. We know that teams always get really creative when they're looking at the rules and they're trying to come up with strategies. So check out that one. September 22nd, we'll be doing a deep dive into the robot design process with teams, local teams who have award-winning designs, and they'll talk about their process. I will say we'll only be able to briefly touch on Spike Prime. We obviously haven't had any teams who have competed with that robot yet, but we do still want to give some Spike Prime robot design tips and tricks as well. But mostly our teams will be talking about their experience with EV3 Mindstorm products, but definitely going to be a great one. In October, we're going to be we've already talked a little bit on our last call about core values and innovation project, but we will be taking a deeper dive and to taking your project to the next level through the Global Innovation Award. We actually had 2 teams in Virginia make it all the way to the top 20 out of the 200 teams that were nominated worldwide. So we're hoping we're going to hear from those teams and some others, hopefully in terms of what they did. Oh, and I need to change something on here, but we will be talking more about the project and then teams that were nominated. October 27th, we'll be looking at community outreach. How can your teams make an impact on the community? And we'll have ideas for COVID-19, because we know that will look different. And we'll be asking on some special teams who have had a really remarkable journey and influence so far in their first LEGO League community. And then 2 really important webinars that I would suggest coaches sit on November 10th. We're going to be talking about that remote judging and consolidated judging and taking a deeper dive to get teams ready for January and February. And then on December 8th, we will know how our area is going to proceed, and we'll be hearing from our regional planning team about what to expect when preparing for an event, especially during COVID-19, and what that's going to look like. So you can register for those webinars here. And as we wrap up tonight, I do want to give a special thanks to the coaches out there. You really make this happen. We appreciate the time you volunteer. We know that it's challenging, and we really appreciate you taking that leap of faith with us and saying that we can still deliver these awesome programs to our students and to our kids, because they absolutely deserve it. And then I also want to thank Karen Berger and Steve Scher and Christian Jones for joining me tonight. They'll be on calls in the future, but I really appreciate them taking the time out of their busy schedules to talk with coaches. And after this webinar ends tonight, I will be sending out the recording and the slides that have links to all the resources you saw. I'll be putting that on the listserv, and then we'll also be putting that on our website. So with that, it is 4 minutes early, and I'll go ahead and wrap it up. And I just want to say thank you so much, everybody, and I hope you have a great evening.